about this guy named Andrew Bruff, who wrote this weird book called A Conversation with the Eye. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's like about like this, guy named Cameron, some everyday bloke in the kind of on the cusp of middle age, and he's at a loss for what to do with his life, and he falls asleep one day, and basically dreams that there's like this eyeball guy on legs, like such as pictured here by a great illustrator I found on Reedsy, and yeah, and then basically, he takes him on his quest, and he's like, kind of, reinforces his intellect or tries to, and he waxes poetical, and then is a lot of his substance. There's not much substance maybe to it because he's very waxing. He doesn't have a lot of praxis to his knowledge, and so they basically meet a few times. But yeah, it's a crazy book. Yeah, it ends with him reclaiming his autonomy and asserting himself in the real world rather than relying on the dream world of Mr. Tiberius, because he's not real. He's just a fanciful thing, or is he? He might be more than that. So yeah, it's like pretty crazy. I mean, make up your mind for yourself. But I definitely give this 10 out of 10. I'd proselytize this throughout the street, tell everybody you know about it. Make a cult out of it, if you will, like, make it in their face, take it in their face, like, take a whole box of these to your friends, take them, reimburse you handsomely, just do whatever you need to do, because it's crazy. It's called, Conversation with the Eye by Andy Buff. That one, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and some other providers, I'm not really too sure, but yeah, anyway, I'm gonna cut that. I am a bookman. It's like some Tim and Eric sketches said, like, it was like, I forget what it was, like, I am a published author, I am a bookman. It's just some stupid made up neologism thing they made as their print to do, and it's basically, it's on Amazon. I'd recommend buying it off of Barnes & Noble because it's $15 on there. I'm not sure what a good reasonable price to set is. I'm really bad at these things, but hopefully maybe I can change it if it's like too much or whatever. And but yeah, I don't know. But since there's like enough of them in circulation, I'd suggest buying it off of Barnes & Noble rather than Amazon, because it's like $7 more expensive. It's like $22 on Amazon. So I'd say buy it off of Barnes & Noble or other provider. And yeah, basically it's my first book. I started writing during COVID a couple years ago, in the span of like a few months maybe, and because I had more alone time, and I was like, oh, I don't have immediate pressing things to do, I might as well see this novel I had. It was actually based off of a slight waking dream, or like it was like, I don't want to say, tempting to say lucid, but I'm not actually, as much as I really want to, I'm not, like, I know it's a skill you can improve, lucid dreaming, and I've watched some videos on it, but I'd like to venture into that more. But as far as I know, I'm not like a natural lucid dreamer. Like, I'm usually fully out, and it's really hard to recall, things with like, but like with lucid, it's like, oh, it's like, but maybe it was partially because I do remember being like cognizant of certain noises and sounds that were going around me, because I think I was at work and people were buzzing about, and I was like on break, drifting in and out of sleep. I just remember hearing, kind of on the verge of unconsciousness and kind of waking up every now and then and being like, and then, and then I just saw the image of like kind of this wry, British, posh British accented type of creature with like an eye for a head, and I think it was definitely because I was reading Nikolai Gogol's The Nose short story, which is hilarious and kind of creepy. It's great satire, Russian satire. I think I'll do more Gogol on here. I'll definitely do that sometime. But yeah, I was reading that, and that definitely caused me to have that type of thing, I think, because it was like, they seem to be causally linked, because it was around the same time. So yeah, I was just kind of, I was like, I wonder if I make this thing, instead of a nose talking to me in my sleep and like kind of teasing me, it's more of like an eyeball. And I just thought of like, oh, that's perfect, because it opens it up for the Enlightenment type of it embodies and symbolizes some sense of the Enlightenment values of, late, not, 1800s and all that, and, the all-seeing eye, and, the the idea, which is an editor actually pointed this out, said that my reminded him of Ralph Waldo Emerson's famous quote about "I've become a transparent eyeball," which I actually put in the foreword to this as well. I could probably read it. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all. The currents of the universal being, circulate through me. I am part of God. So, it's a really interesting quote. So it's like, basically, it's this idea of opening yourself up to all experiences. And this is especially with the transcendentalist. I think this is the nature. Like it's more so, like absorbing everything around you equally and all, and being totally one with nature. And that's kind of what Mr. Tiberius is, because his character is supposed to be kind of this wandering spirit, Odinic spirit, I guess. And yeah, it's kind of on glamoration of a lot of that. And also there's a sketch by Stephen Cranch, I believe his name was, that did a sketch, not this one, but you can probably see it on the Amazon Kindle version that I uploaded. Apologies, at this point my camera turned off, so now I have to rely solely off of my microphone, which might not be too bad if you guys are kind of listening to it in podcast form anyway. So yeah, I'll try to supply you guys with as much pictures as you can, like the little children that we all are, myself included. And yeah, I'll see what I can do in post-edit, so thanks. Earlier this year, I think. And I think I just used that as kind of the generic kind of cover because I couldn't think of anything else. And I was like, yeah, but this is perfect either way, because the Cranch's sketch visualizes and exactly what Emerson was thinking. I think very well. He matches it. And basically I asked my cover art design art book illustrator to if she could kind of loosely base it off of that sketch and kind of like make it like a like a circular type of thing. It's like in this somewhere in the hills of Switzerland, because some of it, when he's recalling his memory, the character, his name is Mr. Tiberius, the Eye Man or whatever, which is a Roman emperor. Golacheb Tiberius, I think was his first name. Can't remember my own character's name. But no, it's like Golacheb because that was a famous alchemist during the 17th century, I think. Kind of like with Paracelsus. And what I found really interesting about that whole thing was that the idea of combining base metals with gold is kind of very indicative of his character, because Mr. Tiberius is like always scheming on. He isn't always who he appears to be, and he always goes in long tangents about, which I can relate to, bro, with like philosophical dissertations and poetic monologues and prosaic, the kind of ruminations and all this stuff he has in his mind that he's accumulated over years and years. And he comes to Cameron, and he's like, Cameron is, in a state in his life where he's at a loss of what to do, and he's like midlife crisis. Lives in West Plainsville, this town which is starkly divided with East Plainsville, and they both kind of like in stark class divisions vie for one another, and they kind of like each one kind of like is it's like West Plainsville is like overly licentious and lazy, and they kind of play into that role, whereas the other one is like kind of posh and upper class and but at the same time maybe more superficial, maybe. So I said maybe so many times. So there's definitely this kind of like magic realism type of hyper real maybe, almost cartoonish sense, because it's like obviously maybe not a whole ton of this is why I don't think it's realism necessarily. It's more so it's a little bit like Dostoevsky's The Double. In fact, I thought at first, like, because this book is like kind of the accumulative effort of like years and years of like reading and doing all that, absorbing material, I think it's kind of this amalgam of all these different things I've learned and different and I wanted to make, in a sense, I drew a lot from Dostoevsky, not just in the Double, in the sense that there's like kind of a stark contrast of like a man who finds out that it's like somebody who looks just like him is like taking over his life and is more suave, more smooth. Then there's this other aspect of Mr. Tiberius that's kind of like the devil from Ivan Karamazov's dream in The Brothers Karamazov, which is in that sense, it's basically, I don't know if you noticed this in that scene, but I've always struck me how benign and like insouciant, very glib this devil character is. Like he's not like a devil with horns and like something you'd expect out of like a biblical or like a full on. People want to kind of we're all inclined, me included, to characterize evil as this very black and white divisions. It makes it easier for us to label someone and say they're evil, and that's kind of goes into Jean Baudelaire and the hyper real, and it's like this thing of like, oh, this war we're fighting in Vietnam, we have to characterize them. It's freedom fighters. We're the freedom fighters. The U.S. we're the freedom fighters. They're the terrorists, or they're the socialists, and it's like all about like Red Scare. It's all about a demagoguery of like fear and hatred and malice, and trying to brew that up in a population to get them to collectively arm themselves and willingly sacrifice themselves in a meaningless war. So, whereas Baudelaire would say something like, someone like Ronald Reagan, like he speaks at the right time. He speaks in this very, I'm not trying to demonize him, but he speaks, I can't remember exactly his words, but Jonas Chica, I think, philosophy YouTube channel, had a really good one on the Matrix and Baudelaire, and it's a really great video. Check it out, because he's probably more well versed in these subjects than I am, definitely. But no, he says something like the idea of that simulacrum, or the likeness of something, sometimes is like realer than the thing itself, or more often than we like to admit. So there's certain things that like like poetic justice, or something like that, where something like justice was served that day or something, and it's like, was it really, or it's like, or is the idea of it, it's like kind of going back to that Platonic, Socratic dialogue of like, what is justice and stuff like that. So, but anyway, enough that change, and basically that's what Mr. Tiberius is. Like, he's benign, he's almost boring a little bit. He's like, oh no, lackadaisical, and he roams around in a sewer in Cameron's mind. That's what he sees when he's half asleep one day, because he's spurned by this, because Cameron's working this very lackluster job that he hates under the fiery fists of tyranny of Mr. Singer, of Charles Singer. And basically I made kind of like this bull market capitalist type of cartoon character out of him, like a very like almost like I don't know, I think I was reading Herman Melville and like Bartleby the Scrivener, and I just got very galvanized by that type of setting, like that type of mid-1800s type of dry jobs that don't really, like just like copying things text by text in a dead letters office, like Bartleby was forced to do, and that kind of explained why he preferred to do nothing, or he didn't prefer to do anything at all. As I just love that. It's one of my favorite short stories. But yeah, I want to add some of that semblance where basically Mr. Tiberius and his acolytes, Mr. Hollister, and like the talking ear, a character that I made that's hard of hearing, ironically, and they all kind of represent kind of archetypal figures of like Mr. Tiberius is the madcap, kind of like devil's advocate, classic devil's advocate. He's more of a trickster, but he's not. But he's also a poet too. He's also goes on these long monologues and talks about Winterthur and Switzerland, which is why Switzerland plays a big role. It's like this microcosm of the Romantic period too. Like I talk about Enlightenment, like the all-seeing eye, but there's also a lot of like romantic type stuff, like just very like strictly European romantic, and it's like this thing of like the characters of, when Mr. Pierce is recalling, I don't want to spoil it for you to spoil the experience of you reading it yourself, but I want to kind of explain this a little bit more to elucidate things that happened. Basically, people were objecting to how long that monologue was when he recalls that his days spent with his old friends on this estate, and they're all known only by Mr. This, Mr. That, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, when he says that, it's all ramblings, right? And it's like, it might mean nothing, but it could mean, it could mean something. I mean, it could be that, one thing that I noticed is, like, when you read any of the other classic people that you love, or, from Victor Hugo to, Tolstoy to, Balzac, or, and they all have a thing where they have these long, deep-seated discussions, and they can be polyphonic, they can be characters representing certain philosophies, and they kind of going at it. Dostoevsky is a prime example. And they all kind of just they butt heads a lot, and they kind of argue, and it's like, oh, this is taking too long, or this is taking too long. But, like, that's kind of the point. Like, I want it to be a challenge, I don't want it to be an easy read. Like, I want the characters to go away feeling like they've actually learned something, maybe. And even though this is a derivation of a derivation, like, it's like, it's me, trying to be maybe too much of a Gogol, or a Nietzsche or Dostoevsky, or it's too much of that, and not enough me. And I'm like, well, I haven't found my voice yet, so I'm trying to. And it's the thing you find with a lot of people who just start out. I'm not trying to sound too pretentious, like, oh, like, I have such a long road, I'm going to publish the greatest novels ever. But no, it's like, you find that with everybody, a lot of people, basically. You start out something, and basically, in your first years, you're still finding your voice, so to speak, and in that sense, things sound too much like something else. Like, so-and-so's first album sounds too much like this band that they love, or something, and that happens all the time. Or, I'm still at the stage where writing songs, it's like, I still sound a lot like, certain artists that I love, like Radiohead, or, but I think, like, it's a necessary phase to go through, and, eventually, you find your niche, you find something that works, and I hope this is kind of a stepping stone into that. Like, I'm actually at the point now that I've read over it so many times, the manuscript, editing for the copy edit, and all that, paid the amount to get it paid, which I'm fine with. It's, reasonable, to the point where I'm kind of sick of it. Like, I'm even just looking over some things that might be considered, little mistakes or something, and, like, I almost don't care. I don't know. That sounds negligent, but I'm just so, like, repetition is, like, the cause of, like, a lot of, I don't know, like, I'm not good with repetition and repetitious tasks. Like, I want to burrow my feet in the future of future goals, future prospects. What's next? I'm writing a novel right now. I've been writing one the past, like, 3 minutes. It's like 1 million pages long. It's going to be whittled down, and it's going to be so much time. But I do want to kind of let you guys in on this book, just to, like, get it out there in some sense. But yeah, it's a, I'd say philosophical fiction / magic realism, or some of the people when I was writing my query letter, and I feel bad because when I first got it published, when I was first trying to get it published, keyword, I was facing, like, basically 100% rejection letters because I didn't get anything back. Otherwise, it would actually be published or something right now. So, redundant way of me wording that, but yeah, it's like basically the publishing industry is very, very competitive, very, very kind of at the top type of thing, where it's like they put in so much. You understand it to a degree because there's, they have tons of money that's to spend to invest in a book, to get it out there, to get publication, to get live readings, to get book signings, and and to go on shows even. And when you go with the Ingram Spark like I did, it was just pay $50 to $100, get it on there, build it yourself, which is a pain at first, I'll admit, but once I got over that and kind of, like, got the full manuscript formatted out, went to the chapter headings, uploaded my cover draft, my this and that and this, watched some videos on it, went through over some curbs, slogged through the process. Yeah, it's fine. It's good. It's fine. It's in print now, but the only thing is that people don't know about it, which is fine. I mean, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I could have paid like an extra little $200, I think, to get a little kind of like thing like in a book catalog. Wow, I can't even speak. That kind of pushes it out there a little bit more. But I don't know. I think the traction. I think it will. I think it will work itself out somehow. I don't know. If people don't hear about it till I'm dead, like Kafka, like nobody heard about Franz Kafka's work until he was well dead. I mean, and his friend and literary executioner, or is it executor, Max Brod, published them for him post-mortem, and because he died, relatively young, even for the time, just like sickness is running around, and he must have been 40, I believe, or early 40s, I think, and yeah, it was just, his life was a struggle. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't this thing of like, oh, Kafka, if he just showed himself and then he got some form of retribution when he finally got literary fame and stuff. But although, other my favorite novelists like Dostoevsky also were like, pretty popular in their own right soon after publishing their masterworks and stuff, and Goethe was a literary celebrity by like his like mid-20s or something. So yeah, I mean, if I'm destined to kind of percolate, I mean, yeah, I'm 26 now. I was like 24 when I wrote it. And yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm trying to get out of that mentality of thinking that something has to be done by a certain age. Like, I have to be such and such by the time I'm, 28 or 29 or 30 or 31, 2, 3 or more. I mean, I'm of the opinion that in the grand sense of the world that it's never too late, technically. And yeah, I mean, I think William Faulkner too. I mean, he worked like a shifts, like these drudging shifts at a power plant, and yeah, and it like he didn't, when he was writing, I think, As I Lay Dying, which, and in his early 30s, I think. So all I'm saying is that it's like fame is very tetchy. It's very capricious, and it's not a sustainable thing that's like, oh, all of a sudden you just do X, Y, and Z and then you get this. It's like, no, it's very, and I can make another video on that. But anyway, tying this up, what am I forgetting? My book themes. The overarching theme I'm trying to get out is that, yes, philosophizing is fun. Thinking, analyzing, I think it's the lyrics to a Tool song, is, it's like thinking over, paralyzation by overanalyzation is like a good metaphor if overused for Mr. Tiberius's type of thing, where he's kind of stuck in this almost like a bardo, or like a Buddhist type of hell. Yeah. See you all later.